Alrighty, hello and welcome to the icon tutorial. My name is Gabby, or Soup, depending on where you know me from. Doesn't really matter. So first steps first with icon making. You find your image, you crop it, you can take it from a Netflix screenshot, from a Google search, whatever. Doesn't really matter. So first step here is we go to pixlr.com/editor. It's free, it's kind of like Photoshop, it's online. I tend to use this for all my icons. Then you go to adjustment and you adjust the curves, and what this is going to do is it's just going to give us the right contrast for our image. So start with black, go to the darkest part of your image, select it, then go to white and select what looks to be the lightest part of your image, and that looks to be Fanya's forehead. And then see how there's this big white spot on her forehead? We don't really want that, so we're just going to go to the center of it and click again and see that made sure that there's one point that's white and the rest of them are not. So we're not quite done yet because she's still a bit green. You can't really tell because we haven't erased the green background yet. But if you want to get an idea of what it's going to end up looking like, you're just going to start by erasing a large portion of the background with the biggest eraser on here. You can make it bigger, but I personally wouldn't because it creates a lot of lag, especially if your Wi-Fi isn't that great. Whoops. Okie doke. And now you're going to go to color balance. And so it's very green, so we're going to green offset so it looks about normal. Like that. And you really just play around with it until it looks right to you. Adjustment, go to color balance again. I tend to like to do it in steps, so see, it looks a bit weird, so we're just not going to do that. And then if you want, which is usually a good idea, is you're going to go to hue and saturation, and you want to saturate your image because in an icon you want to make sure that the colors are bright and distinct. And if she still looks a little bit the wrong shade, you can adjust the hue somewhat like that. And then we have the start to our icon. Alright, see, that looks a lot better than where we started, which was here. And then from here, essentially it's just a lot of erasing. Use different eraser sizes. I tend to go with 50 for big curves that you can easily do. Right, and then I'll go with a smaller eraser for inner curves like here in the hair. And so I actually already did all the erasing so we could get right to the actual icon making. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that layer and view my already erased version of that photograph. So the next step here is you go to Google and you go to Google Images. So that's just, and you're going to look for texture. You can look for a specific color if you want, although if you get a color you don't like, you can always just adjust the hue and that'll change it to a different color. So I'm just going to go with texture. And you want to make sure that you're using one that you're allowed to use. So you go to you go to usage rights and labeled for non-commercial reuse with modification, which basically just means we're not using it for any business of some sort and we're gonna change it up. And you know, you look through, see what you like, and I actually already picked out an image earlier, this one. So then you just copy the URL. And you're going to open image URL as layer and paste that there. It's going to go here, and you want to put it in the background because if you try to adjust it here and then flip it to the background, you'll actually, Pixlr kind of just crops the image for you, and you want to make sure you can use all the portions of image that you want. And so I like to make sure that the light is in line with the way that the light is hitting the person in the original image. So with this, you can see the light's on the bottom, but it's coming from the top. So you're just going to go to layer, flip layer vertical. And see, now that's looking a bit better. Now we go to adjustment, Nope. edit, free transform, and that's just going to let us move it around, stretch it, squeeze it, whatever we need to do. Yeah. And this part's mostly just, if it looks right to you, you go with it. And I'm not really the biggest fan of cyan, so I'm probably going to end up changing this background color and possibly even the shirt color, although I'm not quite sure if I'm going to change the shirt color. But how you would go about doing that is there's this tool called the color replace tool, and lucky for us, her shirt is a very different color from her hair and face, so we can probably just go ahead and set like a medium tolerance, smallish brush, and go ahead and replace it with whatever color you want. Let's say we want to make her shirt bright pink. Whoops, wrong part of the image. You want to make sure you're on the right layer. Make that mistake all the time. See? So you can just go ahead. So you do it kind of like that, and then ta-da! You have a new shirt color. Although I would mess around with the tolerance so that you can see if you can get rid of this part here in her hair. Because see, even if we try to do this, it's just not gonna work out too correctly. Well, it's not too bad. Okay, so I'm just gonna undo all that. So what I'm gonna do for this background is I'm going to adjust the hue, and that just means change the color of the whole thing. I really like that green, but it's a bit intense for me. So I'm just gonna actually, I don't like that. I think the way to go might be to change the saturation. Nope. Okay. In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move it to green, and then brightness and contrast is what seems to be what's going to help us here. Make it a little bit brighter. Contrast just a bit more. And then we can go back to hue and saturation and saturate it a little bit more. Okay, so we've gone from this blue to this, what I think is quite a nice green. Although, come to think of it, I don't really like it as much as the original, so I'm just going to stick with that. But now you guys know how to change the background that we're going to be using. So, now, you might notice there's like some little kind of green looking splotches throughout the image. So we actually use the color replace tool for that. So you want to take the color picker, pick a color near where the splotch is, and go with your color replace, a small brush, and then just go ahead and take away the green splotches. Ain't nothing to it. And you're probably wondering, if the icon size on Tumblr is so small, why am I working with an image this big? And it's honestly just because when you reduce down the pixels, it's going to look better if you start with a big image. If you do all your erasing on the big image, all your color correcting, it looks sharper, it looks nicer. So first I'm just going to make sure that this is what I want. See, that actually looks a little bit better. I like that icy blue color. So it's very nice. So Now from here, you would just blur down the outer edges. So you'd merge down and take this blur tool, make it a reasonable size. For an image that's 1000 by 1000, 15 is honestly fine. And the reason we're blurring is because it makes the images blend together. It makes it look like it kind of belongs in the same place. And so once you finish all the blur tool, you just go to image size. The image size for Tumblr is 128 by 128. So you just go like that, and you would have your icon. And notice how this side looks a lot rougher than this side, even though I only just did a little bit of blurring. But that's not what we're going to do today, because I actually want to show you how to make a special kind of icon where you have a circle in the center and a square part with a sort of different background on the outside. So we're going to, let's see, has Pixlr cropped this? It has. So what we're actually going to do, yeah, that's fine. We're going to, whoops, wrong tab. So we're just going to go to Google Images again, and you want just an image of a circle. It can be whatever image you want, but the key is that it has to be transparent. So you're going to copy it. Well, no, you're going to copy its address, and then you're going to go and add it as a new layer, and you'll see why we're doing this in a second. So once it's a new layer, you want to free transform it so that it is in the same size as the image. And actually, if you align the corners and you move this little middle section all the way to the corner, then the only part that's going to move is this bottom right corner, because you said, okay, the center is the top left. I want you to move from anywhere that's not there. And we align that with the other corner. Okay, and that's and we want to center it as best we can. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then we're going to simply just select, and then see, we have this really nice circle. Now we're going to edit, invert the selection, select this layer, delete, select this layer, delete. See, now we have a circle. And we want to deselect all. I'm just going to go back to where we did the transform in the first place, because I actually, just in case, I want to make sure to save this for later. If you save it as a PXD, you save it as layers. It's like saving it as a PSD, but it's Pixlr, not Photoshop. So I'm just going to save that real quick. Okay, let's go back here. So now what we want is we want sort of the circle to not be the full size of our canvas. So all that we have to do for that is go to Image, Canvas Size, and we have the center here. So let's set our width to 1100 and our height to 1100 too. Let's see if that looks good. So I actually think that would be a good time. So now you see down here, it looks like when we deleted our circle, we didn't quite get everything. That's no big deal. You just kind of have to take an eraser tool, and we'll go ahead and get rid of that bottom layer right here. Now you got to be really careful when you get in close to the circle, because you don't want to mess with that. But actually, there's a handy trick you can use for that. If you just go back here to where our circle is and select it, and then edit, invert selection, it's not going to let you touch the circle, so you can erase safely. Okay, so we have her centered, we have very nice on the outside. So now we're going to add a new layer in the background. Layer, open image URLs layer. I usually like to use the same image that I used on the inside on the outside, just for consistency, and it tends to make it look pretty nice. And we can actually go ahead and delete that circle layer. We don't need it anymore. And then I like it to look kind of different. So since we flipped that layer, for this layer, we're just going to rotate it so that there's a clear distinction between the layers. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing we did last time. We're going to get rid of those pesky little spots that don't look like the same color as the background, because that's actually, it'll kind of mess with our icon in the final go round. It's not really necessary to do all that far. Okay. Now, we don't want it to be exactly the same color, and you'll see why in a moment, but if we start with that, I personally like pastels. If you don't, you can make it darker instead. Why don't we go ahead and make it darker? But if you want pastels, you just up the lightness and you up the saturation slightly, like that. We're not going to do that today. I like kind of like the icy midnight look now that I'm looking at it. And we just change saturation, and I think that looks pretty good. So now we're going to actually duplicate that layer and hue and saturation, and we're going to make it lighter, and we're going to up the saturation a fuck ton. And you'll see why we're doing that in a second. Okay, so now we're going to take this one, and we're going to take a brush, and they actually have a bunch of special brushes already, and I'm just going to go ahead and take the star because I think that's a really pretty brush. And that actually looks about the size I want, so a diameter of 60 is just fine. And you just start deleting this top layer, and that kind of gives it like a nice extra texture. And in this case, it's not really showing up that much. So we either need to make this top layer darker or the bottom layer lighter. Just see what looks right to us. That's, for some reason, does not appear to be changing anything. I'd say that looks pretty all right. Oh. I think I accidentally just undid our progress. That's fine. Let's see if something's up. Something is indeed up here. It looks like our eraser was not an eraser and was a color replacement brush. And I was quite silly doing that. It's fine. We can just delete these two and start over. So mistakes like that happen all the time. might end up editing this part out in post, we shall see. Okay, so same procedure. I'm just gonna speed through it and not really talk as I fix this real quick for us. You know, sometimes I like to line up, like if it has circles like this one does, I kind of make it look like it's going like that, like it's part of a cohesive image, even though it's, well, not. So let's adjust the brightness and contrast like we did originally. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this. So layer 10 is going to be our base. Layer 10 copy. That's going to be the one that we make dark like before. And sometimes we just gotta adjust the hue. It's all right. Okay, now let's make sure we actually have an eraser brush. And again, let's just go with the stars. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So you can just, if you want, you can adjust the spacing between the brush and just go at it by dragging the brush. But I personally like to pinpoint where each and every one is going to go. And what I actually also like to do is after I'm done with this, I like to take stars of a different size. So I just make the eraser brush bigger or smaller, usually smaller, and I just add in some more. Sometimes even bigger and smaller. You can do both. You can do whatever you want. The world is your oyster. So 80, let's see what 80 looks like. Yeah, sure. Actually, that's a bit too big. Let's go with 75. Yeah, that looks right. Now we have some nice big stars among our mess of little guys, and I think that looks quite pretty. So I like that. I'm pretty much done, and I'm going to say, okay, in case I screw up later, let's save the PXD again. I actually, yeah. And I'm just going to change the name because it's a different file. So tutorial icon final. Okay, and now's the fun part. So you're going to merge everything down. Actually, whoops, not quite yet. You're going to merge the two background layers down, and you're going to merge the two front layers down because you don't want to accidentally merge the circle into the edge. It's going to make it look a little less crisp, and where we do want it a little less crisp because it'll make the image look like it's blending in for the front two, you do not want the circle to blend into the back layer. So let us go ahead and blend this. We could select star, but we're not going to do that. All right, 15, diameter's fine. Hardness, I'm going to make it a little bit softer. See how it's blending the hairline into this background? That is what we want. And we don't really have to be all too gentle or worry about messing up because we're gonna bring the image down in size anyway. So any imperfections you see, they're just going to blend down and it's going to be all right. Okie doke. Now we can merge this down or not. It's really down to personal choice, but image size, we want it size of a Tumblr icon, 120 by 120. And there you have it. So save as a PNG because that keeps the most quality. Tutorial icon, and there we go. So thanks for watching. I hope this helped. If you have any more questions, feel free to send me an ask at autisticryptonian.tumblr.com. And signing off.